This episode is brought to you by Patriot Gold Group. Protect your retirement assets. Check in with the experts at Patriot Gold. They've been the top-rated gold IRA dealer for 7 years in a row. That's a lot of years in a row. Go to patriotgoldgroup.com or call 1-888-621-3856 for a free investor guide. It's Monday, 3 June. Welcome to the PDB Afternoon Bulletin. I'm Mike Baker, your eyes and ears on the world stage. Let's get briefed. First, Mexico made history on Sunday, electing the first female president in the nation's history amid an election season marred by record-setting violence. Also, a shocking report reveals that the Biden administration is quietly implementing a program of mass amnesty for some 350,000 migrants, releasing them into the country with no legal requirement to check in with authorities. But first, our afternoon spotlight. Following an election season scarred by political assassinations, Mexico has elected its first female president in the nation's 200-year history. Claudia Sheinbaum, the former mayor of Mexico City and a member of outgoing President AMLO's ruling Morena party, won in a landslide on Sunday, netting an estimated 60% of the national vote. When a final count is completed, it's expected to be the largest vote percentage for any candidate in Mexico's history. That's according to a report from CBS News. Her two opponents only grabbed somewhere around 28% and 10% respectively, giving Sheinbaum a significant political mandate as she enters office. She's considered a lifelong leftist and a liberal populist like her political mentor, AMLO. However, observers say she will likely take a more leftist approach than her predecessor. Now, we should note, much of the election served essentially as a referendum on AMLO, who enjoyed support for his expansion of social programs, doubling the minimum wage, and strengthening the peso, but faced criticism over his controversial crackdowns on the judiciary and independent journalists, as well as his expansion of the military for domestic use. AMLO also coddled the cartels during his tenure under a program that he dubbed Hugs, Not Bullets. Oh, that's sweet. Sheinbaum, who is described as a more mainstream leftist, is expected to distance herself from some of AMLO's policies, which critics have said represent a creeping authoritarianism. While the victory was largely expected, the wide margins were somewhat surprising. As Sheinbaum made history, her Morena party also outperformed expectations, expanding their majorities in both chambers of Congress. As we noted, a final tally is still underway, but the results could leave Sheinbaum and the Morena party with a supermajority or close to it. That would allow her incoming administration to pass sweeping constitutional reforms without opposition if she can sway some of these smaller political factions to her side. Now, the Mexican peso tumbled on Monday over fears that such reforms could negatively impact the economy, with the local stock market also falling several percentage points following the results. Sheinbaum, a former climate scientist, has promised to expand the welfare policies of her predecessor despite facing a significant budget deficit and paltry economic growth. Following her victory, Sheinbaum declared, quote, "I will become the first woman president of Mexico. I don't make it alone. We've all made it with our heroines who gave us our homeland, with our mothers, our daughters, and our granddaughters." Sheinbaum added, quote, "We've demonstrated that Mexico is a democratic country with peaceful elections," end quote. Well, actually, to call this election season in Mexico peaceful is essentially redefining the meaning of peaceful. While voting for the presidential election may have gone down Sunday without incident, the run-up to the elections was the bloodiest in Mexico's storied history, with cartels focusing their attacks on local elections, particularly candidates for mayor and the state legislature. Outside of the presidential election, there were races for both houses of Congress, gubernatorial elections in 9 of the country's 32 states, and thousands of mayoral races. In total, roughly 20,000 congressional and local positions were up for grabs, making it the largest election in Mexico's history. As we've covered on the PDB, some 30 candidates were murdered during the 2024 electoral process. while another 11 were kidnapped and nearly 80 candidates faced significant death threats. The violence wasn't limited to the candidates themselves, with local groups estimating that there were at least 27 other killings of family members, political organizers, and community leaders linked to political candidates during the election season. Just last week, a mayoral candidate in the central Mexican state of Morelos was murdered, even as the campaign season was winding down. Sheinbaum is set to take office on October 1st, with her constitutionally mandated one term running until 2030. Coming up after the break, we'll discuss a report revealing that the Biden administration is quietly implementing a program of mass amnesty, releasing some 350,000 migrants into the country with no legal requirement to check in with authorities. Off you go. I'll be right back. Welcome back. Shifting our focus to the U.S. southern border, I want to draw your attention to a recent story in the New York Post, which reports that the Biden administration has quietly carried out what is essentially a mass amnesty, allowing approximately 350,000 migrants into the U.S. interior since 2022. According to a 2022 memo that was obtained by the newspaper, top ICE legal advisor Carrie Doyle directed prosecutors to drop cases against migrants who do not pose a national security threat. This means migrants' cases get closed without a decision, letting them move freely in the U.S. and reapply for asylum or seek other visas and protections like temporary protected status or DACA. In 2022, under the Biden administration, prosecutors dismissed 102,550 migrant asylum cases, representing a tenfold increase from the number that were dismissed in 2014, as an example. The following year, in 2023, 149,000 cases were closed, and in the current year, the closure of 114,000 cases has already been recorded. As we've reported here on the PDB, abuse of the asylum system has essentially run rampant under the current U.S. administration. 77% of migrants claiming asylum have stayed in the U.S. Now, stick with me, there's a lot of numbers here, I know, but that would be 499,000 of the 648,000 who applied for asylum in the U.S. during that time frame. For some perspective, in 2020, under former President Trump, fewer than 20,000 asylum grants were allowed, and only 4,700 cases were closed. That's according to the Transactional Records Access Clearinghouse. ICE officers report that even though these migrants are initially found without criminal records, the system, they say, is far from perfect, and crimes are reportedly starting to increase. The uptick in crime forces agents to restart removal proceedings, and that can take years. The current backlog of asylum cases stands at, now wait for it, 3.5 million. The Post report comes as President Biden is expected to issue an immigration executive order sometime this week. Oh, he's getting tough on the border, which would restrict migrants' ability to seek asylum at the southern border. The new order will likely cap migrant encounters at 4,000 per day over a week. And according to my quick math, that would be 28,000 during the week, right? 7 times 4,000, see how I did that. Once that threshold is hit, they'd reportedly close the southern border. Now, the move comes as the administration seeks to look tough on the U.S. southern border, which is one of President Biden's biggest political vulnerabilities in the 2024 presidential campaign. As one who never fails to point out the obvious, here I go again, pointing out the obvious. The White House is only now acting like they care about the U.S. border, well, because of poll numbers and the upcoming November election. And that, my friends, is the PDB Afternoon Bulletin for Monday, 3 June. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to me at pdb@thefirsttv.com. And of course, if you want to listen to the show ad-free, be sure to check out our premium membership at pdbpremium.com. Also, remember, as if you could forget, to check out our extended weekend version of the PDB, and we're calling that the PDB Situation Report. It's excellent, informative guests, news, analysis, it's chock full of stuff. New episodes drop every Friday evening at 10 p.m. Eastern on the First TV, and also available on our YouTube channel, President's Daily Brief, as well as all the podcast platforms. I'm Mike Baker, and I'll be back tomorrow. Until then, stay informed, stay safe, stay cool.